Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Voltimum webinar series. I'm Jordan Tentori, the General Manager of DigiNet, part of the Gerard Lighting Group. DigiNet develops cutting-edge lighting technology at the heart of our research and development, and throughout the group we develop this technology further into products. Today we'll be discussing sunset dim technology, providing an overview of this exciting new technology and the new products being released by Gerard Trade Supplies that incorporate sunset dim. If you have any questions along the way, please use the chat box on the left hand side. If possible, I'll answer them either during the presentation or toward the end of the webinar. I'd like to start with the brief history of common light sources, particularly renowned for home, retail and hospitality applications. Throughout the 90s, we saw a massive change from the conventional light bulb that we were so very used to. If we looked at domestic lighting in the 80s, it was quite simply a bulb in the center of a room in a very simple luminaire. However, through the 90s, we saw a massive change. This change was induced by the MR16 halogen. We saw it very early on in designer lighting, in hospitality, hotels, restaurants, entertainment precincts. And the advantage of the MR16 was a combination of better energy efficiency, better glare control, fantastic color rendering, and it fast became a very popular lamp. By the end of the 1990s, we were seeing it in every home adopting this fantastic downlighting, where conventionally we were just using that simple bulb. That kept continuing. The evolution started demanding more and more energy efficiency. The sort of jump from the conventional bulb to the MR16 halogen offered some energy saving. However, in the last decade, as the modern market has demanded more energy consumption with electricity prices going up and energy conservation a big point of builds, we've seen CFL, we've seen a lot of LED come in the market, from very poor quality to very high quality at all different price points. But what we need to understand is, as our hunger for more energy efficient sources have come along, we've sacrificed that quality of light. And today I just want to cover understanding what this quality of light is, because quite often we are demanding quantity rather than quality. So we'll be covering where these sort of demands have come from, and in turn the very reason why sunset dim technology was developed. So one of the most important considerations first of our different light sources is indeed the color quality. Everything we see with the human eye is obviously a result of a light source. Every object we see, every surface, every texture, it's being illuminated by the light source. And quite simply, the better the light source, then of course the easier or the better appearing the object may be. On the left here, you can see some very brief examples of different light sources and their spectrum distribution. So starting at the top left, we have daylight, obviously the benchmark for perfect lighting. It has a fantastic color spectrum, and anything under sunlight appears naturally how it should be. It's also how our brain sort of perceives things. We get a lot of daylight exposure. A lot of the time things that we lit are with daylight. So when we introduce artificial light sources, whether it be incandescent or fluorescent or metal halide or LED, obviously it totally varies the experience of what we're seeing with our eyes. To give you sort of an example, if you were to look at fluorescent, you can see some very tight peaks in that spectral distribution. And what that simply means is there's colors there are quite limited. So you can see in the blue area, there's next to nothing there. So any object that has blue pigment in it won't be properly illuminated. You can see metal halide, yes, it does have more colour, but there are very high peaks and low gutters. And when we look at something like halogen, you can see why it's become so popular and why humans enjoy being under a halogen light source. It has a great spectral distribution, and as a result, our brain does not have to work as hard to understand colour. So when we're in a halogen lit environment, whether it be a retail store where products with all the colour look vibrant and are really shown in their close to natural appearance, or whether it be in the home or domestic application where you're dining or you're watching a movie with the lights dimmed, you've just got that much easier natural light for our brain to comprehend. Unlike light sources like fluorescent, or you can even see the weird shape of a cool white LED where there's a lot of blue in the spectrum and very little red or warmth. What this can create is a lot of calculations happening in the background of our mind that we're not too conscious about, but when under these light sources for a long time, we can find we generate, it can become very uncomfortable, we can perceive things incorrectly, and studies even show it can lead to headache and low productivity. So with Sunset Dim, we basically took LED, and the way we achieve this much better spectral distribution is using a combination of LEDs, or basically having a recipe of light where we're using multiple LEDs of different specifications to achieve a much better color quality. And for Sunset Dim technology, this is one of the main features of the product, the ability to reproduce colors no matter what the environment it's used in, into a more natural appearing color set where an object is appearing as it should. So let's just compare some of these other light sources. We obviously saw the brief history at the start, the different types we're using. We'll probably just go through these different sort of items just to compare the pros and the cons of different light sources. Obviously, energy being up the top. No, the MR16 is not the most efficient light source. However, fluorescent and LED do offer better energy savings. We've sort of got a question mark there in normal LED. That's purely down to the fact that sometimes, depending on the loading of LED or the thermal heat sink of the LED, the true efficiency sometimes cannot be as good as an MR16 or fluorescent, just due to that system design. So there's a big variable in normal LED whether it is truly energy efficient or not. The color quality, which we just talked about, obviously MR16 is very good. Fluorescent, not so good. Normal LED, again, this can vary a lot. There's no set standard, so you can see a big difference between the color quality. Life, again, fluorescent, LED, the main reason why we drove away from the MR16 was that life. Another advantage of the MR16 that was very popular was that focus light, and where sort of fluorescent can be sort of very omnidirectional, a focus light can create that professional looking lighting environment, and that's why the lighting professional so commonly used the MR16 as one of his common design tools to illuminate places with that contrast, without that flat light that can make everything appear very dull and boring. The other one is visual comfort. With a fluorescent, or we see with a lot of normal LEDs now, because of the way their reflector system works, glare can be a big issue. And just like bad color quality, high amounts of glare can really ruin a lighting experience. And everyone's probably been in one situation at some time where you've been in a lit environment and you've got these very intense or bright points of light which your eyes instantly are attracted to. The brain needs to work out a contrast point no different to a camera, and by doing that it sees these very intense light sources. So visual comfort is very important, And again, that's why the MR16 was so commonly adopted and still is today in the home for that reason. Heat control, safety, yes, that's been a weak point of traditional lamps. They do get hot. They do create safety issues, particularly if installed incorrectly with insulation or other materials that can ignite. Obviously, energy efficient light sources are cooler, but LEDs can still emit heat, and it can be to a point that is unsafe if there isn't the right protection of those electronic circuits controlling that heat. Quick on time, this is a very common weak point of a CFL or a fluorescent, where you may go into a room, you turn the lighting on, you're not spending long in that room, and in fact by the time you've left the room the actual fluorescent hasn't reached its brightness point that it's supposed to operate on. MR16 and LED offer much quicker on times, where once you've applied power, you're getting the amount of light that they're supposed to be producing. Another sort of not so common or not really known is the actual color curve dimming. And with a lamp, most commonly, people love that effect of dimming. When we see whether you're changing the actual activity in a lit room, sometimes with cleaning or dining or watching a movie, or even in a retail space, the time of day, dimming can have a big effect on the actual mood that's created. Obviously, one of the biggest factors that are changing is the amount of light. When you dim, obviously you're reducing the amount of light in the room. But another thing is happening, and with incandescent, as you dim it, the actual color temperature of it changes. So if we were to look at a graph to better explain this, you can see the curve on the left here. We've actually got halogen and sunset dim on this graph, and quite simply, as you dim this lamp, the temperature gets warmer. And this is the very inspiration of sunset dim. We've taken this natural behaviour of a halogen lamp and replicated that behaviour using both electronics and a multiple selection of LEDs. A very simple way to explain this colour temperature getting warmer is by the name of the technology itself, and that's indeed the sunset or sunrise. When we see the sun setting or the sun rising, we get a very clear example of this colour temperature changing, and with it also comes a change of mood. The experience of a sunset, and as that colour temperature getting warm, it does have an emotional effect on the user experience. And that is why when we dim the traditional incandescent and we're getting that same effect, you really do feel that different emotion or that different lit environment. A very easy way to explain that is when you're watching a movie, for instance, in a media room or in your lounge room. The natural reaction of the user is to dim the light source to reduce the brightness, but it also adds that warmth, and it's a much more comfortable lighting experience to have this phenomena that occurs, which is this color temperature getting warmer. So sunset dim is inspired by that. Its second biggest feature of sunset dim technology is the advantage of this naturally getting warmer as it dims. The other thing with LED that we've found is there's been a lot of issues revolving around dimming. We see a lot of flickering, not smooth, unlinear-like dimming, and there's been quite a lot of concerns and issues with users of LED on how do I get this proper dimming experience. So sunset dim electronics, the LED driver itself, in the research lab we tested a very broad range of dimmers and this problem that can occur with flickering. In fact, the STS Impala that has just been released into the marketplace offers smooth, flicker-free dimming right down to 0% with sunset dim. So with lamps, once again, we've just taken that for granted. The dimming is very easy. no complexity, no compatibility issues. And LED, this technology has brought a lot of issues around it with proper dimming. So the advantage of this STS Dimpala dimmer is with Sunset Dim you get that beautiful, smooth, flicker-free dimming from 100% to 0%. And the way it achieves that quite simply is its phase adaptive dimming technology, which just allows for small loads down to 2 watt. Because a lot of LED is reducing all these large lighting loads, this was one problem that was occurring due to that. So not only compatible with a lot of dimmers on the market, but with Sunset Dim you can also use the STS dimmer and you're guaranteed down to that 0% dimming. So if we were to look at what is the Sunset Dim, Sunset Dim comes in a lot of range of different formats and footprints. In particular the MRX LED light engine range, and there are different wattages for different industries and applications. Today we're looking here at the MRX 13 module, and quite simply if we were to go over the components, it's based around this low glare reflector. The reflector really takes the beauty of what an MR16 is and what we've grown to love, and replicated that, and that's done with using a light optic in the middle of that reflector. So it's a two-piece design. You can see that little envelope there, it looks very similar to sort of the glass filament of an MR16, and then we've used this low glare reflector not only to direct the light where it should be, but without that uncomfortable glare that a lot of sort of straight diffusers or perhaps optics of a conventional LED can come across very glary and uncomfortable. The main housing acts as the heatsink, and that heatsink ensures long-term performance of the LED. However, in a lot of applications it's hard to control where this product can be installed. In other words, a common problem is perhaps insulation is laid over the top of the heatsink, and this could sometimes be a safety hazard, or it could also severely affect the performance of the LED, and the long life may simply not be long life anymore. So we've incorporated active thermal management, and quite simply this sub-technology monitors the temperature and adjusts the power accordingly to ensure it is always operated within a safe temperature, and more importantly the performance is there for the life of the product. The final component is the LED driver itself. Obviously the electronics in there are transforming that input power down to the power required by Sunset Dim, and the advantages of this driver is it can be dimmed, like we say, just like a normal electronic transformer, so you don't need any extra wires. And the performance of this driver is actually 5 years guaranteed, so there's a high quality standard of all the components used throughout the driver to ensure that the return on investment is there when using this LED alternative to a conventional lamp source. So in terms of actual application, how do you get to use LED Sunset Dim technology in an application? And this is the brand new Astara LED downlight range from Peerlight. It's coming this November, and you can see there's a range of different options of downlights with the Sunset Dim module. So we have a gimbaled reflector. This is particularly good for not only just straight downlighting, but when you have subjects or features that you want to particularly highlight, it gives you that adjustability. The 6-pack also includes the Dimpala dimmer, so you don't need to be worried about, you know, what type of dimmer compatibility or will I get that smooth flicker-free performance. So it's all included in a 6-pack, and there is also a diffused version. In some applications, and particularly personal preference, some people do prefer a diffused or very tight environments where you might want a wider light dispersion. The diffused 6-pack is definitely the solution for those smaller areas, and also included in that 6-pack is the Dimpala dimmer. There's two different finishes, obviously depending on the interior. Most commonly a white or a silver finish allows for, matching the total interior design. Commonly white is very popular. It blends in the ceiling and once again helps lighting sort of produce the experience without being an eyesore. So today it was a brief overview of sunset dim technology. You can learn more about this online by going to sunsetdim.tv. There's an actual 5-minute video which goes into the technology, how it was developed. There's also some fantastic 3D animations of showing you the components and how we achieve this variable color dimming curve. And there's also an interview there with both Simon Gerard, Jason Gerard and Andrew Newman, one of the senior engineers that developed Sunset Dim, and it's a great video for just further understanding the benefits of it and help communicating to third parties as well. So log on to www.sunsetdim.tv for more information. So I appreciate everyone coming for the webinar today. The idea was to give you a introduction to this exciting technology. I think in conclusion it is the solution to replace the MR16. We've taken all the things beautiful about MR16 and we've accommodated probably some of the weaknesses of MR16 to provide a lighting product, a lighting solution that ticks all the boxes, whether it be the color rendering, whether it be the energy efficiency, whether it be the life performance. Sunset Dim has taken in a lot of these weaknesses of solutions out there and packaged it in one complete solution. It was developed from listening to the industry, listening to user experiences and taking that information, taking LED technology and bundling it together to indeed create the solution. So if anyone has any questions, you're quite free to type them below. Perhaps any lighting questions or experiences, or you're quite welcome to ask them in the left chat Q&A box there, and we'll answer some of them. I did have one question come in during the dimmer, just asking sort of the information on the dimmer and using it on other LED products as well. The Dimpala dimmer is designed not only for Sunset Dim, it can be used for other dimmable LED products. The biggest difference to this dimmer to sort of standard dimmers on the market is it allows very small loads, and when dimming LED, normally that flicker or that erratic behaviour you get is because the dimmer is severely underloaded, because LEDs are efficient. So the Dimpala allows low wattage loads, as low as 2 watt in fact, and it adapts that phase dimming to the actual load that's coming in. So if you do want to dim LED, it's definitely a solution beyond just Sunset Dim. I've also got another question here in terms of light output on matching the downlight to an actual MR16 in terms of wattage. Most commonly people use either a 50 watt or a 35 watt MR16. 9 times out of 10 the 50 watt MR16 is too bright for normal ceiling heights in particular, and that's why the dimmer is there, because it's very bright. People tend to use a lot of downlights at high wattage. The Astara range uses the MRX10 or the 10 watt Sunset Dim module, and this has been designed for the 35 watt sort of equivalent of an MR16, and for most applications this is more than enough light, and of course with the dimming you can reduce it to lower levels if need be. there's any other questions. I think we'll just take one more question. Probably got time for one more. In terms of pricing, Jeremy, the Astara range, there's quite a few different variants. There is, like I say, it comes in a 6-pack, and there are diffuse, there are reflector, both adjustable and non-adjustable versions. So I would contact your local wholesaler probably to get the most comprehensive pricing for that. In terms of the color dimming range, at full brightness, it is just above 2900K, exactly that of a MR16 halogen. And then when you dim down to the lowest brightness, you'll just be hitting 1600K, again, that same sort of behavior of the MR16. But thank you everyone again for attending today. Like I said, for more information, you can visit sunsetdim.tv. Okay, thank you everybody. We'll close it off now. We have a 30-second survey if you'd like to participate. We'd definitely like the feedback to always create better webinars. And thank you, Voltium, for having me today. We appreciate your feedback. Thanks again. Good evening.